concepts, definitions, and how digital innovation is touching different spheres of social, political, economic, spheres, and what kind of implications it has, on all these spheres. This is what we discussed last session, right? In the last session. So this session is, we will go a little bit into more of economic aspects of it. So how it has developed in different geographies, and how it evolved in as a dominant, dominant paradigm in different countries or supranational bodies like US, China, Europe, and then some of the other countries, and then what actually it entails to the global political economy. So this is what we will see today. But before we go into the details of it, so I would like to so I would like to revisit what we have done, last week, so that we kind of remember, so that we don't forget, and then we don't lose the touch. It's like what's happening in this session. And some of you maybe first time you are joining this course and you missed the first one, so it's always good to recollect and recap the concepts. So today we will discuss about the stakeholders perspective. But stakeholders here, when I say, it's a very broad term I'm using here, which means it's nation states, which are participating in digital innovation development, and some of the supranational bodies like European Union, right? It's not a nation state, but it is a supranational body which has legitimacy, but it has many countries within its fold. So the policy making, which impacts the all other countries within the European Union, is far reaching. So it's not just, it's like one country makes the policy. As a supranational body, it frames the policies for all other countries within its fold. So that's one part. And the second part is, so the ecosystem, right? So ecosystem involves not just nation states, but it has larger, political actors, economic actors, and social actors. So when I say economic actors, obviously the companies and the startups and the big companies which are actually innovating on digital technologies, and some of the research institutes which have commercial, non-commercial interests both, and academia, which are like research institutes and the labs and the universities, educational institutions, all this academic space, and non-academic space, right? So think tanks, media, which actually kind of promote this idea of digital innovation. So there are different actors, right? So in each sphere. So similarly, civil society, like non-profit organizations, multilateral agencies, funding agencies, and non-governmental organizations like NGOs, social sector, and common people like you and me, who basically try to understand, try to make sense of it, but use these technologies in our daily lives. Similarly, get impacted by them. So we all become part of this stakeholder layout. So we will start with the geographies, how it evolved, and then slowly we will enter into different segments. So which means actually this is the first. You have to treat this as a first part of the whole this session, and the second part we will discuss more on stakeholders and the actors in the next session, that is coming Saturday, right? So this Saturday we will our focus will be more on nation states and their their impact on digital technologies. So that's what we will see today. So let's get into the subject. Okay, yeah. So sorry. So let's recap. So So I want, I want to do some kind of interactive session today. So unlike last session, so let's let's ask few questions ourselves and then see how we remember. So anybody wants to volunteer and then talk about innovation, what is innovation, and what it means in broader terms, or in academic sense, what we discussed last time, or you want to visit the Schumpeter's analysis of innovation, or just components, anything, what you remember. If somebody can raise their hand, and then you can speak. Maybe the facilitators can open the space and then you can speak. So who wants to volunteer? So I see a chat. Yeah, you can also type. You can type your answer, or what you think, your comment, anything. No, nobody wants to volunteer. Okay. Okay, so if you don't want to interact, then okay. So yeah, if it is your first session, I am not expecting you to answer, but somebody who has attended last session. So if one of you guys can, just type here what do you think, or you want to speak, you can, unmute yourself, or if it is not possible, somebody will unmute and then you can speak. If you say you want to speak here, you can type here, and then we can unmute and you can speak. Okay. So then if you guys don't want to participate or don't want to interact, then let's just recap. But even it's not innovation, it's anything, any of these. Sorry. Yeah, somebody is speaking. If you don't want to speak, then you mute it. If you want to speak on the topic, then you say that you want to be unmuted. Yeah. Yeah. I think somebody is...
Hello.
Yeah, please.
Sir, I didn't attend last class, but I would like to attempt the meaning of innovation. It is a new concept that aims to produce knowledge, new kind of ways to tackle any kind of issues, or just to produce. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's correct. So it has it is at a very simpler level. Yes, it is to address a problem, or to actually improve any process, service, product, or simply a social activity. So to improve significantly, from what we have been doing traditionally or conventionally. So to do it differently, but improve it significantly, to create value, to increase productivity, to make it efficient and effective, to reduce cost, cost of that activity, and making it simpler, making it cost effective. So these all are some of the outcomes, of innovation. So innovation is basically a next step to invention, right? So invention is what we understood. Invention is basically an experimental, scientific discovery, where you come up with a new solution, but it may not be applicable in a real life, or in a societal in a societal platform. So you cannot make a commercial application out of it. So that is invention. In the sense, it can be, or it may not be. It will not have that element as an essential one, right? So the commercialization is not an essential element of invention. But innovation, on the other hand, So it has to be applicable, it is an applied knowledge, the knowledge has to be applied in the real time social situations. So that's what innovation is all about. So that is innovation in a nutshell, as a concept. So what is digital innovation to anybody? So it's not very different from innovation, right? It's basically using digital tools, technologies, to develop innovation. Basically, when you are using ICT tools, information communication technology tools, basically, and you come up with a new process, new service, new product, or new business model, or new social activity. So this is basically a digital innovation. So it's innovation, but using digital tools, technologies, you improvise the current processes or current product services. Yeah, you're right. Bring new ways through digital technology. Exactly, Yash, you're right. So that is digital innovation. So from digital innovation, we also understood what is digital innovation, what is digital transformation, the two different terms, right? So they are not same, but they are a little different. So how you can distinguish them? So from digital innovation, digital transformation. So anybody wants to volunteer on this? You can try. There's nothing wrong. It's like, even if you are if you are just guessing, also I would be okay. It's good to have a good guess, to apply those new ways of using digital technology to bring transformation. Yeah. So it's basically in an environment, right? So it is not a digital transformation is distinct, a distinct concept from digital innovation, simply because it is applied over a period of time. As digital innovation has a definitive end, right? So this is what you have understood. This can be applied in certain organizational or commercial application. So that is what digital innovation is. But this applicability has to bring more value in terms of, in the long term, people should be able to use these innovations for changing the ways, in ways they have been doing certain activities. Either it could be business, or it could be government services delivery, or it could be social transformation projects. So it's a programmatic approach, right? So it's a program. It's not a one time activity. It is a continuous activity, a long term activity, where you basically apply these digital innovations to change, to bring change to those processes, organizational processes, or activities, or to improve skills, to improve knowledge production itself, or to improve institutional activities. And even the way we kind of organize ourselves in many ways. Let's say a great example could be how all this UID, right? So Aadhaar. So it is in a way a digital transformation project, because every person is getting a digital identity, and through the digital identity we will be able to get benefits from different government services, government public goods, basically. So our government delivery mechanism, so it can be strengthened by using this digital identity program. So how does it do it? So when we have a digital footprint, so what we do is we can be identified. A person is identified by the government. This is the person who is the target beneficiary. So this person has to it has to be connected, right? First connected to the government applications, the electronic applications. So that when we interact with the digital applications, then government knows this is the person who has, who is a part of the beneficiary group. So it can directly provide or produce those goods, public good or public service delivery to them. So, but it is a large scale project, and it goes into few years, and it is a program. So people, or it is not stopped one day, right? So after everybody gets a digital identity, so then the project is stopped. No. So it's actually a continuous process where improvements keep on happening. So which means actually digital innovation also doesn't stop, but digital innovation it precedes digital transformation, but along the course of digital transformation also digital innovation can happen. So let's say, when you have a digital footprint, as a digital identity you have as part of Aadhaar project, and you are getting government services, you are getting bank account, you are getting certain services, but at the same time, because of the data what you provide, and government can come up with additional more efficient service mechanism. Let's say UPI is a universal payment interface, right? So it's a great interface where you can instantaneously send money from one bank to another bank without any delays. So which is great innovation for common people, but this is because of this digital identity is created. So that's when and because everybody has whoever has account, they also have a mobile phone, and that mobile phone is smartphone, and smartphone has ability, it has an ability to to give you that the digital connectivity, and you can actually, this identity can be fixed, this Aadhaar number and this your mobile number can be connected, right? They both are connected, and then you will be given this platform to interact. This is a from the public sector space, from the public sector standpoint, this is digital transformation. In a business sense, digital transformation can be transforming the entire sales organization, in the sense the sales people, right? The people who go and sell the products or services, they will be given digital devices, and they will be given a target on the digital space. Like, let's say there is a database where they enter all their data. So how much sales they are doing today, and then what is the target tomorrow, and then how they have been achieving this, and this all can be captured. And this, once they capture, this also can be monitored by their supervisors, and they can give additional targets, or if they are achieving targets, they can be given some monetary incentives based on that. So this is all possible because you are seeing everything in real time. It is possible in real time to monitor performance, to reward performance, to also tie this performance of the individual person to the whole entire team, and then you also can bring them to you can also assess their skills based on what they have been doing. So whether they lack some skills, or in the sales skills, or if it is a sales team. But this is just one example, right? So sales team is one team, but the whole entire organization also can undergo the digital transformation, right? Because sales team doesn't work in isolation. It has to work along with HR team, human resources team, along with marketing team, along with technology team, or products team, service manufacturing team. So all this, when you have to work with them to make sales better, or to improve your product, because sales people are the salespersons are the ones who bring market knowledge, right? So what customer wants. So based on that, if they give feedback, then the production team can improve the products. So which means actually digital transformation is not just only helping one department, but it is actually everybody can be connected through different applications, and everybody can be monitored, everybody can share knowledge, everybody can improve their performance at one go. So this is a kind of a benefit what you get out of digital transformation. But along the course of the time, when you are going through the digital transformation, digital innovation also is possible. But digital transformation doesn't come before digital innovation, because digital innovation is the first step. When you have tools, when you have technologies, then only digital transformation can happen. Once digital transformation starts, then innovation is possible at any point in time, right? So when you get a new idea, you implement it, and you make effective, you improve your processes, or you improve your products, services, or you can tweak your business models based on what you see the data, because it's all about data, because data is at the center of digital innovation and digital transformation, that we need to remember. So it is data driven. The new digital innovation, digital transformation, and digital economy, it operates based on the data. What you can call it even big data, right? So in some cases, so based on that, it operates because of the insights what it can get from the data, by using artificial intelligence, by using the real-time analytics, and by using predictive technologies. So they can not only monitor, but they can also predict the outcomes based on the technologies what is available. That is all possible because of the data, availability of the data on internet. That's the crux of digital innovation and transformation, which was not possible before digital innovation. So that is what we have to remember. And what about digitization and digitalization, how these terms differ? So anybody wants to take a guess, or if you remember from the last time, or from your own experience, if you want to say something? Well, they appear to be same, right? Looks like very similar terms, but there is a slight difference. Digitization and digitalization, yeah, but yeah. So the yeah, but digitalization is digital tools, in the sense, yeah, digital tools in a way helps digitalization, but digitization process is basically just simply computerizing your whole paper based, you know yeah. So that's what. So it's basically, digital is nothing but you're computerized, right? So you have zeros and ones, bits, basically. So I'm not sure how many of you have familiarity with how the computer processing, how computer processing works. If you don't have, I think you should a little bit read about, yeah, the how computers work and how information technology works. A basic understanding you should have, a basic one. It doesn't require very advanced knowledge. It's a very basic ones. When you use the computer, you would know that, actually. So digitization is simply going from paper based activities to computer based activity. That is digitization. It's a very simple computerization process. But digitalization, on the other hand, as someone pointed out, using digital tools, in the sense, it's like more than computer. It is more smart technologies, like where you use high speed internet, and you need the algorithms, where artificial intelligence, and you need cloud. When I say cloud means nothing but a distributed systems, right? So you can access data sitting in one place, the data which is lying or stored in somewhere else. Similarly, the servers and the data centers, can be somewhere else. All your data processing can happen, in the US, but still, you don't need any large data centers in India to access, Facebook, to access Google, to access any of these, technology companies, their content. You don't need anything. You just simply should have your own laptop and internet. So if you have internet, you can access all this information on your laptop, though they are not, stored in your locality, in your geography, in your country. Still, you can do that by, because it is, cloud technology, cloud computing has made it possible, because it all started as a defense project in the US, right? So it's part of the internet project, advanced advanced. It's called APARP part. So which is a Defense Technology Research Center. So it's Army enabled research. So what they have done is they have developed this technology, cloud technology and the internet both, to basically to connect to access remote computers which are not in their own, surroundings, in their own environment. So to network, to connect with, to access data from other computers. So they have developed this technology. So that is the main difference between digitization and digitalization. So from digitalization comes digital innovation, basically. So digital innovation is nothing but digitalization. Both are very similar terms. Digital transformation is a long-term process where you change the activities, the way you are conventionally or traditionally doing, with a long-term view. You take a long-term view and implement these digital innovations to transform your activities. That is digital transformation. And we also talked a little bit about public policy last time. Public policy is, anybody wants to take a guess on public policy? So what is public policy? How you want to define public policy, and or how you understand or how it is used? Rules and regulations. Yeah, it's one part of the public policy, rules and regulations. That is regulatory frameworks enabled by policy makers. So that's one part of the public policy. Anyone else? That's a good answer, but that's one part.
Sir, public policy is made by administrative staff, like bureaucracy of a country. They made new policies for people, for welfare of the people, for a good of the people.
Yeah, it's yeah. It is, the intention is to make a good, in the interest of the people, to frame, rules, regulations, but at the same time, the administrative, increase the administrative capability, and to reach out to people, to deliver public goods and services. Set of instructions that are standards and followed by all, inclusive the global, local corporations, institutions. Yeah, that's also one part of it. Yeah, so these all are parts of, public policy schemes, rules and measures for public welfare. Yeah, that's also correct answer. So these all are, part of public policy. But public policy, in essence, it is basically, a political process where legislators, in the sense, in a democratic setup, elected representatives. In non-democratic setup, the establishment, right, the public administration, who has power to make laws, make rules, make regulations, and also, formulate interest of the people. So when I say interest of the people, it includes, it can be interest of entities, business entities. It could be interest of common public. It is also interest of, in the interest of, a particular group also. So because it sometimes the policies are not made for everyone, right? So there is a particular group then they make policies for that group to, for either for the interest or for advancement, progress, or sometimes even curtail them, to basically to not to give them power, to advance or to do certain things. So that is regulation. Basically, you control, you regulate. So that is public policy, right? Public policy is, um, a legislation or a law or a standard, frame it in the interest of the people or in the interest of the particular system. When I say system, it could be country, it could be, a state, a local body, and it could be even a global governance system. Like, let's say UN, right? UN has its own policy making body. So which is applicable, not applicable in general, it is actually a guidance to most of the countries, right? So all the members of the United Nations. So that is public policy. So public policy is an interdisciplinary, interdisciplinary subject, because it is just not only political science, because it takes a lot of aspects of political science, but it also includes economics, it includes sociology, it includes insight from other fields like technology and science. So it's a very broad term which encompasses all other disciplines, and to frame policies for each sector, segment, each industry, and each segment of population. For everything, you need expertise, at least some level of expertise in that field. So public policy, that is why public policy is more interdisciplinary than any other social sciences, right? Yeah, okay, you can see. So creative destruction is, so these all are definitions, right? These all are definitions which are like we discussed, but there are concepts which we also discussed in the last class. So one is, creative destruction. What is creative destruction? So anybody was there last time? So from last class, somebody has come to this class as well. So somebody who has understood or who remember from the last class? No? So creative destruction. Okay, can we get a recording of the class? Yes. Yes, it is there. It will be posted in. It's also simultaneously broadcasted on YouTube, so you guys can access this on YouTube. Yeah. So the creative destruction is nothing but innovation as a process. Once it is applied in the society, or it's applied in the commercial field, so the already existing business activities, especially it is actually creative destruction is it's applied in the business concept, right? It's an economic concept. It's economics and business cycles. It is derived from that discipline. So Schumpeter coined this term, the creative destruction. So it is when you have a new technology or new innovation, it basically replaces the old ones, right? So I gave some examples last time. It's like you have a new automobile revolution happened, right? In 1800s, late 1800s, and so this actually replaced the whole other modes of transportation what we had. Similarly, there are many business models or innovations that have gone away, right? So like, let's say a batch process of manufacturing, right? That manufacturing is being replaced by assembly lines. So you don't manufacture one product at one time. If it is a similar mass production happens, then you do it on assembly line. So that gave, that led to a mass production of the goods in the new economy, right? When I say new economy, I don't mean actually knowledge economy, but in the in the industrial revolution, basically from after 1800s in the 1900s. So it started with automobiles, the whole assembly line production. So this gave away to a new kind of production, which actually replaced. And today, no more the assembly line production, no more the single production, which are one by one batch process doesn't happen. Similarly, 3D printing, right? So we may see this, maybe in our lifetimes or in future, we may see 3D printing is giving away, paving way to a new production revolution, where the older methods are going to be obsolete, and then they won't be there. We won't be seeing anymore, those factories which are today a massive production factories. We may not see them, in some time later. Similarly, in photography, digital photography, it has replaced the Kodak one, right? The film photography that has been replaced now. So nobody uses film anymore, So only we rely on digital photography. So which means actually it has destroyed one type of product, one type of industry, and it has created out of that that destroyed industry a new industry, because it is not completely a new one, right? So photography is photography, right? Camera is camera, but there is a significant improvement, right, from a film photography to a digital photography. So which means actually it has destroyed the earlier one, and it has taken a new shape, which is basically a creative destruction, it is called, because it is creating something out of destruction. So by destroying something else which is old. And we also talked about modes of knowledge production, right? So modes of knowledge production, so we talked about 3 modes of knowledge production. One is a unidisciplinary, and which is basically inventive, right? Which is basically only deals with inventions. So which and at in a location like university or research institute. But in the mode 2, we also discussed, in the mode 2, there are more actors coming together to basically, after the innovation process takes place, right? From invention, it goes into innovation process, where commercial application is more, increasingly in the applied field, not just only in the scientific field, but in the applied field. The fundamental science gives the tools to basically, enables us to get into the next level of, applied field. So that is the mode 2 of knowledge production. The mode 3 is basically even more actors coming together, right? So it's not just only 2-3 actors coming together like university and the companies or government, but a host of other actors coming together as an ecosystem, right? So let's say a city, right? City like Bangalore. So the Bangalore has become a center for IT, companies, and a technology hub, and economic activity surrounded by technology, right? So everything is based on it's like the whole economic productivity and then the consumption happens. It has increased because of the technology industry existed there. So, but that technology industry to come there, so there are other things which actually helped. So let's say universities and research institutes and infrastructure, public infrastructure like roads, railways, airport, and even sometimes the social infrastructure, right? The healthcare and hospitals, schools, playgrounds. These all are also part of the knowledge third, the mode 3, part of the mode 3 production, right? So more actors coming together, and they intertwine with each other, when they sometimes unintentionally, there are ideas produced, maybe a university cafe, right? So that's also a place for new ideas. And but once these ideas come into the application, so if it has to come into the application, then you need a different kind of actors, right? So because you can't just innovate something, invent something, and then make a production and then keep it in your place. It has to go out into the market, it has to make money, or it has to create value, even if it is not a commercial, it doesn't have commercial element. So it has to create value to somebody, right? So there's a larger applicability should be there to the society. Then only it is called innovation, right? The scalability, we call it scalability. We'll come to that, the scalability part of it in next sessions, because that's a very important concept, the scaling, because now the whole platform economy or digital economy works on this concept called scaling, right? Scale up. So whenever you talk about startup, people talk about scaling up. So we have to scale from 100 user to 1,000 to 100,000 multiplies, right? So it's all about, we'll talk about multiplies, and the factors of multiplication, like millions of users. That is the end goal for most of the digital platforms. So that, how is it possible? It is possible only because there are a number of actors involved in this process. So like I said, infrastructure. So who make the infrastructure, who who facilitate this from apart from the government, right? So there are other actors like so and interactions, right? So it's one place to another place, internationalization happens, right? So if the product is built in Silicon Valley, it is coming to India in no time, right? So how does it happen? So how does this interaction takes place in both in an institutional setup, but at the same time outside the institutional setup? When I say institutional setup, there are organizations which do that, and then they come here, set up their organization. But outside that also this happens. People bring ideas from one place to another place. So it is not that it's like we only establish the company and then we go to Silicon Valley, learn, and then come here and then implement it. No, it also happens in a non-institutional setup where people learn from different a tacit knowledge. Like explicitly you don't have to learn, you learn even outside these organizations, institutions, or systems, and then you grasp these ideas, and then you start your own platform, or your own social innovation, or your own government innovation. So but ideas are always transporting from one place to another place. So that can only happen in the third mode. That's what it says when I say third. And then we also talked about network effects. So I don't know if you remember network effects. So who remembers network effects? See, I'm doing this because it's like we will not forget this, so that it's like in the next sessions when we go into more deeper into the digital economy and digital policy making, governance, so we will keep using these terms, right? So when we use these terms, we should know what it means exactly, or at least a broader understanding of these terms. It's like what it means, and then in a policy field. That's why I'm repeating again, taking time first 20 minutes to half an hour, so that we know these terms well. So that's why I'm asking you guys, so that you remember this well, so you don't forget again when you come into the next class. So what do you guys think about network effects? Anyone? Okay. So network effects is basically the interconnectedness of the digital platform, right? So I'm using digital platform, but it applies to others as well, like let's say telecom companies, right? So once you have built infrastructure for telecom, a telecom player, right? So like Bharti Airtel. So it has laid down all the cables, and then it has put all the towers, cell towers, and then it has, the connectivity is established. Now they need customers, right? So there are one customer, second customer, third customer, and then the more and more customers come onto this network. So what happens is, the customer gets value. At the same time, the cost of the unit price, right? So to access this network becomes less and less, which means basically this works on economies of scale. So economies of scale is nothing but, it's like the more you produce, the less the fixed costs, right? There are operating costs always. Operating costs always increase with more, more people coming onto the platform or coming onto the network. The operating costs increase, but the fixed cost decreases, right? So because in the same with the same infrastructure, you are able to bring more and more customers. So you don't pay any additional money, capital, right? So working capital, or the capital to build infrastructure, additional infrastructure, is very limited in these instances where these network effects work. And in telecom, or in even utilities like water, like even in the energy, right, power. So when electric cables are laid, so if you have to give another additional connection, it is just only another few meters of the electric wire is required, and a pole is required, maybe in Indian context. It's like if it is over the surface. But what it means is you need only little bit of resources to reach additional customer, additional user, to bring you into your network of any utility like telecom, water, energy, these kind of systems. But in digital field, what happens is even the operating costs, right, are low. So in digital platform economy, what is cost, what costs platform incur is basically it's a marketing, sales. This is what is more expensive, right? And using the data, like insight, making insight out of the data, raw data, what they collect, right? And making and more and more employees they need to basically to make the system more stable. And they need more technologies, which means actually they have to invest in both innovation and buy technology. So this is the cost associated with digital platforms. But when the users come onto the platform, the additional costs are very minimal, right? So when you have Facebook as a platform, the demand side of it, demand side is basically users, right? So with the demand side of platform, basically you don't need any additional resources to get another user. And these users, the more and more users come onto the platform, they bring more value because the interaction is more, which means the interaction is not just only because of the interaction, but the data what the platforms collect from these interactions, right? From the content what they generate. Then what they do is they actually understand your behavior. So how you interact and what kind of content you produce on the platform. And they also, what they do is they sell ads. So based on behavioral traits, right, of users, they basically target your behavior, and based on that they give you an advertisement. So it is basically ad revenues what they generate based on this network effects. So that is why network effects is very important when we understand digital platform economy. So please understand this, because it creates monopolies. The kind of the more and more network effects, the benefits of network effects accrued, so you are able to bring more and more users. When you bring more users onto your platform, what happens is they are logged in, right? It's like your time is actually logged into Facebook, right? So You spend more time on Facebook and more time on Twitter, more time on LinkedIn. So now a new platform comes. So it is very difficult, for them to take you away from Facebook, because you are already connected with millions of people, right? So you always have so many friends, so many networks you have built. So it is very difficult for other platforms which are new entrants to take you away from there, to take your attention away from there. So then Facebook becomes a monopoly in media, right? So that is a downside of it. Network effects gives a great advantage to the platform, but as a society, as an economy, a country, or overall, as a society, we lose out because of the monopoly situation, right? So if somebody becomes monopoly, what happens? They become so dominant, and they try to now set the standard, set the tone, and build the narrative, build what you want. They may not give you, they may understand, but they will manipulate you, and then give you basically what you would like to see. So this group behavior, they can mold, actually they can manipulate also. So these things are happening across the globe. So that's one of the fallout of this social media platforms. But similarly on the e-commerce, right? So e-commerce platforms are little different, because they don't have this kind of same kind of effect, but they have something different. So like Amazon, right? Amazon, what it has done is, it has become so big. So all the book retailers, right? The physical book retailers who have been selling, on the street, in especially in the US, in the early days of Amazon, or in the once it reached certain stage, right? So because of the network effects, there are so many users started ordering from Amazon. So the physical retail shops have started closing down. So they have lost jobs, and they have become effectively, the delivery boys or employees of Amazon, where they have lost their autonomy. So these things can happen to your economy, and then they become low paid from higher paid, jobs or activities. So which means actually your standard of life has gone down, from a book owner to become a Amazon employee. And sometimes you become a partner, you sell on Amazon, but on Amazon terms, not on your terms, right? So now you don't dictate what actually you can sell and buy from your supplier and to your customer. So now Amazon dictates what actually you have to sell and what is in demand. They will tell you this is what is in demand, because based on the insight what they generate out of this whole, the content, the data what they collect from the user, their users and customers. So then, all the small businesses have lost, in the due course. So that is an advantage and the disadvantage, of network effects. And another concept is techno-solutionism, or technological fix, they call it. It's anybody wants to try this? What is techno-solutionism? Yeah, you're right. The belief, that technology can solve all, problems, and you can find, yeah, it's always good. Yeah, that's correct. So this, this idea of techno-solutionism, it is not new, but it has amplified. It is amplified in the digital economy, right? Because digital economy is seen as a kind of a means to address social issues, right? Not only just economic issues, but social issues. How it started as, let's say, digital economy, digital platforms or digital technologies make, complex social issues, right? Because social issues are not easy, right? So the most of the problems what we see, the grand challenges, right? So we call it grand challenges in policy terms, the grand policy challenges in governance, in public good delivery, or even equitable distribution. So if you want to distribute resources, right, across different populations, then then there are social issues, right? It's not easy. It's not just economic, right? So you always have finite resources. You don't have infinite resources. You always have limited resources. These resources have to be distributed, based on different parameters, right? Governments draw those parameters. That is what public policy is all about. So how do you, draw these parameters? Based on social, economic, political, and geographical, and all other, environmental, so many considerations, right? So all these considerations, are counted, and then governments make decisions on these considerations, and uh, uh, start distributing the resources, or addressing the challenges coming out of our society. But techno-solutionism, on the other hand, what it does is it sees this as a very simple field, the social field as a very simplified field. It thinks that everything can be turned into a data, right? So everything can be quantified, everything can be made it transparent, so that we can see the problem and we can fix it with a shortcut fix, right? Like some of the examples also, we all have certain examples in India as well, right? So let's say if there is a problem, burglary, so you start installing CCTVs, right? CC cameras, basically. So everywhere CC camera, install CC camera, so that it's like from next day onwards we don't have any burglaries or anything, any thefts or anything. It's all done. So is it a solution? Simply installing CC camera and monitoring every house, is it a solution? That is called techno-solutionism, right? So it is a technology and you can monitor everything, but the problem is, so there are other problems arise out of this techno-solutionism, like by installing CC camera, you also undermine the right to privacy of people, right? So because people can't move, and then you surveil on everyone, right? So and then you use that data for other purposes, right? So not just only to identify the problem, but you also use that data to basically penalize the person whom you don't like, though they are not criminals, but you don't like somebody, so you penalize, by using the data wrongly, which may not be which may not be a penal a crime, punishable crime, but still you call them to the police station and you harass them, saying that I found this video on your on this particular CC camera, and then we identified this as you, and then you need to come to police station, and then we'll be taking we'll be charging you. So this is a very simple one I'm talking about. So this kind of attitude in the government is very much prevalent across the globe. It's not just only in India, but I'm just giving one example in India because in many of the cities we think about this, right? So public safety is a very important aspect of public policy, and it has to be tackled. There's no other way. But the solutions what we come up with is a quick fixes without thinking through the fallouts and the downsides, disadvantages. We simply resort to these kind of simple technological fixes. So, and what is digital colonialism? Next we will come to this topic. Digital colonialism, digital sovereignty, right? Sovereignty, these two are very very much interrelated, though they are not same. They are exactly opposite in a sense, but they are interrelated terms, right? So colonialism, right? So colonialism is basically a powerful actor takes the resource and then take the political control and the social dominance, and control the resources, economic resources, and appear to be they are doing something building something for the public benefit. But through, by controlling all this, they may give you some benefits, but what they do is they take essential part of your economy, politics, and society. This is what happened in colonial times, right? So it's an imperial Britain or France. So they did the same thing in 1700s, 1600s, in the sea from towards 16th century till 19th century and 20th century. They have been colonizing different territories of the world and different societies. They have done that. So that was a kind of a physical territorial colonialism, right? So you go, you understood what are the sea routes to reach certain place, and then you have power because of technological advancements what you have attained through industrial revolution. So you have muscle power like guns and transportation equipment, and you have abilities to produce printable and all the documentary technologies. So what you do is you go into certain territory and then you subdue them. You slowly occupy their territories, you govern them, but you are an outsider, right? So you are not one among them. So it is not representative. You are somebody who is outsider coming inside and then controlling their resources, controlling their lives, controlling their social fabric. So that is colonialism in a classical terms, right? But in digital sense, in a post, after colonialism is ended in a way, in terms of it's like the European colonialism, right? This is basically the European colonizers went across the globe and then they have colonized different territories, geographical territories. So that is a physical territories. But now in the new digital space, most of the experts believe that there is a different kind of a colonialism is happening in the world. That is basically all these the developed countries, especially the US and to an extent the European Union and China, right? These three have become dominant players, and they have been producing dominant platforms, right? Digital platforms, digital platforms which can control economies basically. So they can control data of the people, and they can control the commerce. So now what we see, e-commerce platforms, and they control even political narratives like Facebook and Twitter. So this basically they call it, and then this data is not actually used for the people who are users of these platforms. It is not used for their benefit. It is used for the platform's benefit alone. That is one side of it. And the governments, right? So the US government, it also collects data from different sources, including their own companies. They ask them to cooperate with them, and then they collect data. So this data sometimes even cross border, in the sense it's outside the US, right? So it may be India, it may be Africa, it may be Latin America. They collect that data, and then they use it. They use it for their own purposes, the US political purposes, right? So then when they use it, they are increasing their dominance by having this insight on others, right? So the data of somebody else, this is not the data of American people, not used for Americans and by Americans. It's not that. It is basically an American platform which is collecting outside America. The data which is collected outside America is used by the government to the political ends or to the purpose of politics. So that is called digital colonialism in digital economy today. So a lot of people proposed to come out of it, or to push away this digital colonialism. A concept called digital sovereignty. So like how we established our own sovereign nation after British left, right? So it's a similarly, so most of the countries, they have established their sovereign governments, right? So after the colonizers left their countries. So similarly, the concept has emerged, digital sovereignty concept. So where the governments now, the national governments, right? It has become now political, aspect. This whole digital space has taken a political turn. So where all the nations started, controlling their own users' data. What they are doing is they are imposing restrictions on these platforms not to take this data outside their countries, which means now the cloud, what is, we talked about cloud, right? Cloud technology. Cloud computing is nothing but the distributed systems, the systems where, the data can be stored anywhere in the world, but can be accessed also from anywhere, even you don't have in the similar geographic location. Like let's say we access Google and Facebook in India, but they don't need to have, their servers, their storage, or their data centers in India. That whole data can be, just stored in US, and you only see their, access their content on their web. That's it. So this has to stop. That's what the national governments have put these regulations, especially, the big countries who have resources to do that, right? Who have the state capacity to regulate. So India has done it, in the last 10 years. They have taken a lot of measures to basically ask all these platforms to set up their data centers, local data centers in India, and not to take the data from India to elsewhere, wherever they are from, especially if they are originated in US or China or Europe or Japan, wherever. So, but still, this as a concept is evolving. It is still not a law in many countries. So India also is coming up with its own, digital data protection law, right? So it is still the bill is, it is in the parliament. It is getting passed. So once it becomes law, then this applies to all the companies, in India also. The companies which are from outside, or even within India also, the Indian companies also cannot take their data away from India. They have to process. That is one of the clauses, right, in the law. But law is more expansive, more comprehensive. We'll talk about that when we come to that, that part, digital economy and data privacy, data protection, and data security, right? These are the three concepts we have in as part of the digital innovation policy. So we will talk about that when we come to that topic. So as of now, these are some of the concepts and definitions we need to remember throughout the course. This is one thing. And second thing is, as and when there is a concept, right? So when we see a concept, please note down that term, note down that term. And then if you don't understand anything, you can mail me, or we can have interactive session, one session in a week, maybe in the mid of the week, like Wednesday or Thursday. So I don't know what is comfortable to you guys. So I prefer, I think, Thursday, 7 p.m. the same time. So I will check with the team, Nalanda team, and then I will there will be a mail, I think, for all of you. When do you want this kind of a session, interactive session, so that you can ask all these questions, and if the terms you don't understand or concepts you don't understand, or simply, it's like there won't be any presentation, there won't be any lecture. So it's all your time. It's not my time. This is my time, right? So I talk, and we both you ask either questions, or I ask question, you answer. But that time will be only for you. You ask questions, I'm happy to answer them, or we can discuss together. So that's one announcement I have today. So we will shortly, we will tell this, because I prefer Thursday. If you have any preference, then you can mention that here. So then we will see if you all are comfortable either Wednesday, then we will keep it in Wednesday, because I have these 2 days I can come, either Wednesday or Thursday. So you can suggest that one day, if you guys have any preference, then just post it here. So that's about this concepts and definitions. Then we will go into the next slide. Before we go into the next slide, I want to come back. I want to just switch off my laptop and come back, because this is actually hanged, so I can't operate this system anymore. So let me come back again. So I just want to take a small break, a minute break or a few seconds break. Okay. Yeah. So let's get into the today's the next part of the session, right? From recap to the ecosystems, stakeholders and geographies. So it's actually the title is stakeholders, ecosystems and geographies, but we will come from the other side, geographies, because it has to be like from broader to, we will go into the the smaller thing, like we'll narrow down. We'll first talk about the broader concept, and then we will get into the narrower field. So as we discussed just earlier, so the digital economy is now dominated by three major countries or players, right? So one is United States, Europe, China. And if you want me to be more the pecking order, be in the pecking order, then United States, China and Europe, because United States is arguably the most dominant player. So you can see that, right? So what this is actually one of the reports I have written. So from that I have taken this. So it's 100 platforms we saw, so 100 platforms, the biggest platforms, the value, market value, in the sense, either their valuation or their stock market. If they have listed on the stock market, what is their value? Or if they are not listed, then what is their valuation in general? So if we see that, so United States has the most number of them, and at the same time, the value also, both in the number of platforms and their value in terms of the value of the platforms. The both United States dominate. And the second is obviously China, not Europe. So this is one aspect where Europe has deviated from the gender. Usually, what happens is US and Europe post World War, they have become dominant players, right, in determining the policies, global standards, and global governance. But at the same time, the economy also, right? The trade, commerce, economy, they have become very dominant players in the economic sphere. But over the last 20 to 30 years, China has taken a second position now. So especially in the digital economic space. So now we see how they have done it. So each player, so that we understand, it's like how these ecosystems are developed, right? So if United States has done something which others could not do, or why Europe is lagging behind, or something like why Asia Pacific, in the sense the rest of Asia Pacific apart from China is also part of Asia Pacific, but it is treated now as a separate economy, because of the size of it is much bigger than rest of the Asia. So that's why we kind of understand, we need to understand how this evolved, right? This dominance, digital dominance, has evolved over the period of time in the last 30 years, right? So these are some of the facts. So 90% of the unicorns are concentrated in the developed world and China. So developed world in the sense, it's North America, United States, and Canada in North America, and the whole Western Europe and bits of Eastern Europe, which is European Union, you call it, and maybe a little bit Russia, because Andex I can see here, which is part of Russian ecosystem, and China. So this is one part, and the rest of the world, which is basically sometimes we call it global South, right? But here we are not talking about global South, because Japan and Korea also part of Asia Pacific here, right? We see here Japan and the Korean companies like Samsung, right? Samsung I can see here. So a lot of Indian companies also are there here. You can see Paytm, OYO Rooms, or Ola, Byju's. So they're all unicorns. What is unicorn? Unicorn is basically a startup which actually crosses $1 billion of US dollars of value, market value, in the sense their stock value, either on the stock market or outside the stock market, simply a venture capitalist values them, right? So this is the value of a startup or a technology company. So the technology company which has more than $1 billion value is a unicorn. So in that unicorn, if we put this is how it looks like, the global map, right? And so this is important, right? This part, the third point is important for us. Every 10% additional internet penetration adds 0.77 percentage points to per capita GDP growth. But this is for only developed countries, which means, so if there are 100 million, right? 100 million internet users are there in the developed world, which is, like I said, Europe, United States and Canada and Japan to an extent. These economies, if there are 10 million users, internet users, they have added more to already 100 million, right? So which has become 110 million users, which is like 11 crore, right? In Indian term, if you want to speak. So we don't speak in million terms. So let me tell you in, so 10 crores, right? 10 crore population already have internet access. The other 1 crore adds to this 10 crore, then the 0.77 percentage points, in the sense less than 1%, GDP growth happens in the developed world. But if the same phenomena occurs in the developing world, which is like in India or Africa or other parts of Asia, like Southeast Asia, other South Asian countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and even some parts of Middle East and Africa, right? In these countries, if we add 1 crore more population to internet base, right, user base, then the growth, GDP growth would be more than 1%, which means actually the value what we are deriving out of internet penetration, more internet penetration, is much more than developed countries. That is because developed countries cannot get this value, the additional value, as much as developing countries, for a simple reason, right? So what is that reason? The reason is they already are on the growth path. One. Second is they have infrastructure which can be leveraged for economic productivity, right? So let's say banks, right? So in India, we have, India had a huge unbanked population, right? So we didn't have financial inclusion for a long time. We had only 30% of financial inclusion, in the sense only 30% of the people in India had access to bank. But that number has increased over the time, right? So with Jan Dhan, accounts, and there are other financial inclusion, previous governments, what they have taken into, priority sectors, right? So they have included a lot of farmers, a lot of other, groups to the banking sector, and then they have started, giving them accounts with a no frills account, without any money. Also, you can open the accounts. So that promoted, more banking, but still it had stopped actually at 40-50% only, because the infrastructure is limited, right? Though you don't have enough banks, enough people to serve, enough, supporting infrastructure to construct the bank, to have, every place there should be enough roads, enough, telecommunications. So all that, it has to be part of that. Then only you can have another bank, so that, it's like everything works smoothly in the bank. So since we don't have banks, so what is the alternate? Now, internet can provide that alternate banking, right? So the mobile phones, the smartphones, can offer you a fintech solution, which is the solution which solves this problem of unbankingness or not having access to bank. So now you have access to financial services product. You can transfer money, you can buy financial products, insurance products over the smartphone itself. So this is possible only because of internet penetration. So which means actually that is not possible in this value, right? This, what it does is this now adds to your economic growth in India. But the same thing doesn't happen in Japan or in Europe or in parts of the US, in most of the parts of the US. So why? Because they already have access to bank. They already have, the technology, infrastructure, everything, to access the bank. So they can go to the bank, and then it is just an additional, internet is not, it is not going to bring large chunk of population into the mainstream economy. It is only a part of the people, it's only an additional, facility for them. It's a convenience for them. But for India, it is essential service, which they didn't have access at all. Now, large chunk of the population can come onto the platform and they can access to these financial services products. So that is why, the accrued benefit, the benefit what we get out of internet is much more than what the developed countries already, who has all the infrastructure, facilities, convenience, who has, that is for them, it's less. For us, it's more than them. That is what this shows. So that's why how important is digital innovation for a developing country. This is what I would like to emphasize here. So yeah, you guys I think understand this, right? So now let's go into the next slide. Again, let's yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, so how these models evolved, right? We'll see that here. So how, it's famously called Silicon Valley model, the US model is, right? So rightly so, because the whole digital innovation ecosystem and the digital innovation, proliferated from Silicon Valley, though it has its own roots across United States, like in Boston, in New York. So there are so many centers, right? Hubs, basically digital innovation hubs throughout, last 40-50 years. But the majority of these companies, institutions, universities, they have actually the research institutes. They are concentrated in and around San Francisco. So there is a precedence to it. There is a historical background to it. Historically, the most California is one of the richest states in the US. First, second is San Francisco, and around San Francisco there are there have been many companies which started there, which has some kind of a technology background. Let's say HP, right? Hewlett and Packard. So it started in Silicon Valley, basically in what today we call it Silicon Valley, but in those days it was basically Stanford, right? So near Stanford. So Stanford University itself, this has become a center of innovation for a long time. And similarly, Compaq, which is another company which is acquired by HP. So what they have done is they have kind of the companies in California, they have partnered with universities in California, and then they have interchanged, or they have exchanged knowledge. So what they produce, they have brought to the commercial field, from universities to commercial field by the companies, and then the companies again brought them back to the capabilities to universities. So this partnership, right, it has actually, this collaboration worked so well in the state of California. And similarly, state of California government itself had a role to play, because they have funded a large number of these research projects in California. But before this, what was the success of, why there was it has been very successful in US, the why it started there actually. So you have to see the historical reasons, because science, technology, these things are not produced in isolation, right? It also has its own historical, political, and economic background, or they are situated in these contexts, right? The technological development is situated in political, social, and economic contexts. So we have to see how, the post World War, right? After World War II, US has become a major player in economic. They have become a dominant economic player in the globe. So that is first. Second, by being an economic player, because they have, they benefited from World War II, by supplying their manufacturing goods, by finding markets, different markets in Europe, in Japan. So they have become a dominant economic player. So while they were becoming dominant economic player, they have also attracted large number of scientists, large number of technologists, large number of management professionals. So from Europe, because of the war, the war period, interwar period, Europe was going through a turmoil, right? Because of the Nazi era. So Nazi politics, Hitler was at the helm in Germany, and he threatened Jews, right? So a lot of Jewish scientists left, doctors, engineers, business professionals, and entrepreneurs. They left Europe, right? They left Europe and they went to US. So US benefited from that exodus, right? Mass exodus. Not only Jews is one community which actually was one of the communities which was very much part of the knowledge production in Europe. So they left. Along with them, in the interwar period, because of the war, there are others also who went to pursue studies, for peaceful, living. They left for US because of their own, linkages, right? So because they all came from Europe. The US population, predominantly, it has roots in historical roots in Europe. So because of that, there are also European institutions have provided that base for them, birthed talent. So when they came to US, and in the interwar period, they have focused on technological development, right? So if you see IBM, if you see HP, these all are 100-year-old companies, right? They started actually with a very rudimentary technologies like typewriters. Though they all, these technologies have the historically rooted in Europe, basically, or Japan, or some of them are even go as far as 14th century, 13th century in China, like like gunpowder, like printing press in Germany. So like all these technologies, they have laid the foundation for the new technologies, right? So technology is, in a way, it is a disruptive force, right? So one technology goes away, obsoletes, and then the new technology emerges. But the new technology is not a new in the sense it's a completely, you create out of something. No, it is from a old technology. There are reminiscents of it. There are something which is actually continuing. Like there is a printing, right? So the printing has been there, but in a different forms it is there. The technology has been continuously improving, right? Sometime we have been using different, instruments, different material to produce scripts, to produce literature. But later, this has become more advanced, right? The more technological advance took place, the more, convenience, the more comfort, we have more, effectiveness and more efficiency we have gained. So that is what technology does. So US, with this historical background, they have dominated political, social, economic power in post-World War period. So in that time, they have invested that money, surplus money, what they have gained out of these wars, right? They have used this money, they have deployed this money in research, in education, in universities. So with that, So all the universities have started investing in inventions and investing in research and development. So this publicly funded money going into the universities have gone into the companies as well, because they have so much money. They have started collaborating with companies, and they have brought new technologies like IBM supercomputer, right? So the mainframes, so which are like really first time a fast processing computers. And similarly, internet also is publicly funded project. So as I said, it's a defense funded project by Pentagon. So then they have commissioned a project, and then they have, with the publicly funded resources, they have developed these networks to access remote computers. So that is how internet was born, and cloud computing was born. And from there, then new companies, then once they develop, what they have done is they have given away those patents, those intellectual property rights. They have not kept for themselves, but they have given it to the companies who wants to work with them, right? They have shared the knowledge with them. They have not given away the patent, but they have shared the knowledge. So with the knowledge sharing, the Google, Amazon, all these companies, what they have done is they have, gained this knowledge and started developing their own products, right? Which has a commercial element, which has use for large number of people, right? So they're like search engine, right? Search engine is basically an internet technology, but they have understood, this can be used by millions, and these millions can produce data, and this data can be sold for advertisements. The advertisements can again produce more insight, and then this can become on itself as a big platform where we can build so many products, and then become a platform that can be a global in scale, and millions of users or hundreds of millions of users and billions of revenues, which ultimately generates, right? But it took a long process, right? It is a long process. It took longer time, because this is how it is. So whenever there is a platform, it only focuses on bringing the users to it. It's on its platform. It doesn't bother about revenues, right? In the beginning. That's how this digital economy works, because the revenues are minimal, because the kind of scale what they get, right? So like, let's say if you keep your product search engine from the beginning, if you charge money which is like $1 per user, will you go into the search engine? No, you won't, right? So why will you go into the search engine, which is not tested before, and suddenly you pay $1 and then you go into the search engine and search for it? No, you won't do that. But at the same time, if you don't have users, you cannot get these advertisers, right? So who are advertisers? They have to advertise on Google web page. Then you go and click on the website and on their advertisement. When you click on the advertisement, you get into their website, right? The company which wants to sell you product. But the intermediary is Google. When you go and buy the product, the beneficiary company, which is actually advertising on the Google platform, is getting money. So what they do is they share that revenue with Google in the form of advertisement, buying. So in the sense, they buy the space on Google platform, and for that space, they pay for Google. But that is again, if you tell them, I have 100 users and you give me, $100, they will not give you, because unless they see the value in it, they will not pay you money in the first instance. So for that, you need to give them space as minimal as possible, price, or with no price in the beginning. Then you lock them slowly. Once they see the benefit, they only pay, because there is a competition, right, for the space. So who gets the first slot, right? When you search in the Google, there are 10 advertisements you see in the beginning, right, in the top. So the first one should be somebody who is paying more, which means actually that is what it means. Similarly, on Twitter, on Facebook, So whichever you are seeing first, they are paying more or they are targeting you. So which means actually you are a potential customer. So if they have to reach a potential customer, they have to pay to Google. So that's how this platform, economy evolved. So, so, then the United States Silicon Valley model. Why I am saying this is because to understand Silicon Valley model, you need to understand this. This is basically a scalable model which actually can get more and more users and then their data, right? So then only this works. So that is digital economy basically. So this Silicon Valley model has been developed, on this business model, this concept. But this is actually also is called MIT model in a different way, because MIT has come up with this kind of a business model in their MIT Sloan Management Review. They talked about how digital platforms can make money. That's how they have formulated this concept and this business model. So based on that, Google's and everybody, they have started molding their business model to the digital economy and benefit themselves, right? So how does this work? This works just not one company, but many companies have to be in the same space. Then only this knowledge exchange is possible again, right? So if Google is there, Facebook also is in Silicon Valley, right? And Twitter also is in Silicon Valley. And there are Airbnb also is in Silicon Valley. Tesla also is in Silicon Valley. Why? Because when there are already established digital technology players and actors, not just the business players, but you have a conducive environment first. The government is providing policies to come and then establish your firm for a very, very minimal cost, right? So you come and then you set up your office space. You don't have to pay many taxes because you are an entrepreneur, you are creating jobs. So you come here and then you establish your company, you provide jobs and you provide high value products to the services, so to the users. So which becomes a big part of the economy in the later stage. That's how they have understood, the policymakers. So policymakers have given this whole, Silicon Valley to these firms so that this becomes one cluster, right? One hub. So cluster based, you call cluster based policies, right? This policy is called cluster based policy. So cluster economies, they are called also. They are also called, the spatial based economies. So because it's a space based economy, one space you come and then most of the companies come there and they benefit from the policies, government policies. And once they establish, they also interact with each other, right? So because talent, right? From Google, the same one chief technology officer quits Google and joins Facebook. Similarly, YouTube product manager, he quits and then he starts his own, platform. Similarly, somebody else, like in Twitter, somebody quits and then starts their own platform, like Airbnb. It's this kind of exchange of knowledge, right? One place to another place, like learning from each other. And because of this, and then there are also universities. As I said, the universities provide them the collaborative spaces so that it's like the same guy who is a vice president in Google, he also teaches in Stanford, and the Stanford provides a collaborative space for Google and Stanford come together and then to come out with even much more innovative products and services. So, and how this is possible? This is possible again because of the infrastructure what Californian state is providing, and what Silicon Valley or today Bay Area, right? So in normal terms, we call it Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area. So this provides a good social life, and there are great restaurants, great pubs, great spaces for everything. So then this becomes an ecosystem. What is ecosystem? Ecosystem is nothing but, because it comes from eco, right? Ecology. Ecological system means every diverse element, actor, has a role to play, and then they shape each other and they shape the ecological system, right? So that is why it is called ecological system, because one is dependent on each other. There is a symbiotic relationship between different actors. That's why it's called ecosystem. ecological system. So the term has been adopted from this ecological, this biological and this science term into a policy term. Like today, it is in the business and the business public policy. Ecosystem, when people say ecosystem, it suddenly, people are reminded of innovation ecosystem, policy ecosystem, business ecosystem. So that's how we are reminded now. So it has become so normal to use these terms today. So from scientific term, it has become a very normal term. So normal usage, it's like a usual term, general term, generic term. So if you see this, that's how this ecosystem has been developed. The whole San Francisco, Silicon Valley ecosystem, and the government has a huge role to play in the initial phases of this revolution, this digital revolution, right? So by providing research funding, and then inviting researchers and innovators, entrepreneurs to come to the universities, or the university students can innovate by availing the funds, availing the spaces, and it is a perfect ground for them, to interact with the different students and bring ideas to the table. And then once you bring the ideas to the table, and then you can find a mentor who is a professor who is also working with the company, so that he understands both the commercial aspects of it and the scientific aspects of it, right? So if you have to develop a search engine, so you need to just not understand only the how search engine is being developed, so how to develop this tool. No, it is not that, but you have to also understand how this can be used commercially, how it can generate revenue. That also you have to understand. So for that, you need mentors, you need ecosystem where you can interact with people who already understand these concepts on both sides. So the universities are perfect grounds for them, and these same professionals across this segments, they come together and they produce this essential knowledge, right? So that's how this ecosystem, like National Science Foundation, right? National Institute of Health, NIH, we call it NSF. These all are United States, funding organizations which fund research, right? So they have funded billions of dollars into these technologies, which we see today as a very commercial technologies, and we see them as a Facebooks, Amazon, and Google. So these companies are not, the products of only the entrepreneurs. They have developed based on the research has been produced in the universities, in different companies and different setups, in the research institutes, in defense institutes. So by public funding. So this is what we need to understand. So this all together, coming together and producing this, this technology, is called a technological ecosystem, and the players are called stakeholders, right? So the stakeholders, when I say stakeholders is not just only who are participating or who are producing or who are helping. It's also users who are like you and me, and who are also kind of controllers, right? So regulators who regulate this. Then that we will come in the next part, right? And so if you see the American system, so it is actually developed from this model, this model called Silicon Valley model, and which is today it's the dominant model, which is adopted across the globe. Like we call it, we call Bangalore as a Silicon Valley of India. So it's become a generic term today. Anybody who wants to create an ecosystem, create an urban space, right? So which is like technologically advanced, which is like a hub for entrepreneurial spirit. So it's called Silicon Valley today, Silicon Valley of Asia. Singapore is called Silicon Valley of Asia. Bangalore is called Silicon Valley of Asia. And there are so many Silicon Valleys every day we hear, So every region has its own Silicon Valley today. So, but the origin is in the US. That is because of all these reasons, So it has become such a great hub, or such a strong hub. I will not say great. Great is a positive word. So, so we'll see, how positive, how negative all this, and then how it will it impacts. So we will see over the course of next few lessons, right? So, and this ecosystem is is also developed due to in the initial stage no regulation, or later stage light touch regulation, we call it, right? The regulatory environment is very light. You don't have very huge restrictions, massive restrictions on how to develop this technology, right? So when the technology is developed, it can easily come into the market. It doesn't have to any report to anyone saying that it's like we need to get a license from the state to to venture into the market, or to bring these products into the market. So neither YouTube nor Google search, or even Facebook, Amazon, none of them have to acquire license, right? So which means actually there is no regulation. So this regulatory vacuum, right, or light regulatory environment has made it possible for American companies to grow such a big scale, right? And next is a new way of funding, right? So that is another important facet of this digital economy. So till that time, it was only resources what you acquire from your own personal capacity, right? So if you are an entrepreneur, if you are an innovator, what you do is you go to the market, you raise funds from banks, right? And second way of doing it is your relatives or your personal funds and your family, or even you make partners. You ask somebody, you bring investment, I will make you partner. That is one way of doing it. And then you give a stake to them. I will give you 10% of the partnership in my firm, and then you bring some 1 crore rupee to you give me, so I'll make you partner, and then we will share the profit and loss. So that's another way of dealing with the funding. But in the Silicon Valley model, first time they have devised a new model that is called VC funding model, right? VC funding model is you pool the funding from different sources, and there is a venture capital institute or venture capital company, right? So which is registered as mostly as a partnership firm in these technological hubs, basically either in Bangalore or in Mumbai, or in Gurgaon in India, or if it is US, mostly they are concentrated in the Silicon Valley, where the technology innovation is happening, where the more entrepreneurs are coming. So obviously they want to have access to the companies, right? So where their proximity is easier, the close proximity gives them more information. So they can sit on their boards, the company's boards, and then see how they are doing, or they can simply interact easily with them and then see how they are performing, so that they can give more funding. So this venture capital funding has a different kind of a framework. So how it works? It works like this, right? So an entrepreneur comes up with the first idea, initial idea, and then he tells this funding institute, which is venture capital, VC, we call it VC funding, right? So the VC, he goes to the VC funding, venture capital funding, and then tells him, this is what I have got an idea, this is what my pitch is. It's called pitch actually now. So I have this idea, so I want to come out with this search engine, or this I want to reach out to 1 million patients by with a remote healthcare platform. So we will offer doctors on remote basis, like seeing the patient from the from digital camera, and we will consultations we will provide from the doctor, but we will reach 1 million in the next couple of years, or 5 years, 5 years timeline. And these 1 million people will give us this much revenue. And this revenue is not only the source of revenue for us, but we will also charge the doctor who is basically coming on our platform and getting the fees from the customer, and then we will fraction of it, we will also give our space to advertisements for the other healthcare companies. So it's a multiple possibilities it can create, a digital platform. So that's why this VC funding is interested in this kind of a concepts, new concepts, innovative concepts. And then they fund first. When the idea is pitched, they will give a futuristic possibilities, right? The platform is not ready, it's just an idea, or it may be ready but not many users. But now the guy wants money to build the platform or to expand the platform. So what he does is he will just ask for the money, and then pool the money and start the process. So VC funding in a rounds it happens. First idea, then once idea is implemented and then the platform is developed, then users are come on the platform. Then slowly in the 5 rounds, 5 kinds of investments he raises, right? Raises 5 rounds of investment. Each round, when he is successful, his valuation goes up. So let's say he has built the platform and then he has funding of $1 million or something like 1 crore rupees. Then his next round, he has platform ready, and then he has his valuation, his company's valuation goes up into 10 crores because he has already developed, platform is developed, he has a perfect plan. And when it is 10 crores, then what he does is he will, yeah, okay. Sorry, I think we are overshooting time. So let me just take this. We will go into the next class and then do it. So it's, I think we are almost more than 2 hours. So I think we should take into next class, and then maybe we will take the questions now. So next class we will talk more about the global south and the innovation actors here, and how innovation ecosystems are developed. Everything we will talk in a very detailed manner in the next class, because we are already now it's, I think, what for you guys it's 9 o'clock, right? No, it's 9:05. So let's take some questions. If you have questions, then we will wrap up now, and then we will take this in the next class. Yeah. Let's open to the questions now. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sir. Can I read it for you?
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
So question is, what do you think of the cryptocurrency bill?
Okay, so the new one.
Yes, sir. It is asked by Narola Dhar, and I think it's regarding the recent bill which is introduced by Indian government in recent parliament session.
Yeah. So I have just like skimmed through this, but I have not gone into the detail. But cryptocurrency is an interesting phenomena. So the thing is, Indian government has a different intentions, right, to see how these cryptocurrency investments are going, where it is going, because it's a very complicated understanding. The government's understanding is mostly complicated, right? So it's not a very simple understanding, because they see this cryptocurrency investments are going in a wrong direction, right? Some of them are money laundering, some of them are towards terrorism or whatever, the usual government rhetoric or government narrative. So but that is one issue, right? So but there are concerns across the globe about cryptocurrency, how these investments can be used for money laundering. So especially cross-border money laundering from one place to another place, and to evade taxes. So you basically go into the platform and then buy, because it cannot be regulated, it cannot be monitored. So the banks don't have control. So basically the central bank, that is Reserve Bank of India, don't have any control, right? So they can't monitor how these investments are made, because it's not going through the banking channels. So that's where the governments increasingly are wary of cryptocurrency investments. Not just only in India, China has completely banned. It's a blanket ban on cryptocurrency. In China, you cannot buy any cryptocurrency today. So that is because the governments are are facing this challenge of monitoring these investments. So that's the problem. So the Indian government also is the same. They also want to have control over this funds and flow of money, because after pandemic there is a huge crisis for funds, right? So there's a money flow has become slowed down in India, and economy is slowed down. People don't have money in their hands, the consumers don't have money. So now if government, for the government, even government schemes are facing crisis of dearth of funds. Actually there's a huge dearth of funds for government. So where now if they lose on taxes, so they are worried about this one area is this losing the tax revenues. So if anyone has any question, please feel to. Okay. So, but even though present transparent cash banking channels, money laundering still exists. So, see, the thing is, there are at least there are some checks and balances, right? So, see, always there will be gaps. Any regulation you make, there will be always gaps. It's not that it's like people find loopholes, right? So it's not that government leaves the loophole. People find loopholes and they get away with it. So there may be existing some kind of a loopholes, and people can get away with the banking channels as well, the formal banking channels. But cryptocurrency leaves even a bigger loophole, right? So you can invest without formal banking account, and you can invest in most of the investments can be made outside India as well, in a different currency. And one crypto to another crypto is possible, right? So buying one crypto, first you buy Bitcoin, and then you transfer that money to maybe Dogecoin, right? So, and then if it is you are losing money, if you think, and then you buy Shiba Inu or something like that. So it's these cryptocurrencies are not easy to be monitored, right? So you can't monitor every cryptocurrency, because every day there is one cryptocurrency is released into the market. So how do government can have a regulation to monitor every cryptocurrency which is originated some part of the world? It is not possible. So that's why governments are wary of this cryptocurrency business. Not just India, it is many countries are are facing this challenge, and they want to regulate cryptocurrency for good or bad, because the same reason what I said, the money laundering is one of the biggest problem, and second is tax evasion. So people can evade tax by doing that, which is a revenue loss for government. Yeah. Any other question? I hope I have answered this question. If you have any doubt, we can discuss this separately, or you can write it now, or you can ask also on chat. Yeah. Yeah. So I am not sure if you had any technical difficulty in following the lecture, but you can revisit this lecture on YouTube. But I will answer this crisply. So these companies, they have started with no regulation, right? So you can buy any product and service, any product on Amazon sitting anywhere. That's how it started, and no jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is basically a territorial. A law is applied for one territory in a nation-state framework, right? So India is one jurisdiction within India, and you have again states, provinces or states. We call it states, and in some countries they call it provinces or regions. So this provincial governments, the state governments, have their own jurisdiction. So which is enshrined in constitution again, right? So there are because of the federal nature of our constitution, it gives some powers to states. The states can make their own legislations and their own laws, like the federal government, the central union government, right? So the union government has certain mandates, and the state governments have certain mandates. These are called jurisdictions. So the jurisdiction applies to the companies where there is a clear-cut law is framed, right, by the government. Government says this is the law which is applied to particular sector. So there is a sectoral laws, right? So every sector has its is governed by certain laws, like competition law, like regional transportation law, right? So transportation authorities in each state has power to regulate transportation systems, right? Similarly, media is regulated by broadcast, Prasar Bharati, which is a media broadcasting authority. Similarly, every segment has its own, either like banks have its own, Reserve Bank of India. Similarly, you have other consumer segments have its own, laws which govern them, like consumer courts you can go, dispute resolution process is there, and then the competition law applies to most of the companies, because if you become monopoly and if you are abusing market dominance, right? So if a company is becoming monopoly and then abusing the market dominance by not allowing others to compete, right? So that is called abusing market dominance. So you have a huge share of the market, like you have something like more than 50% customers are in your fold, and you don't allow others to enter the market either, or if they are entering also, you don't let them operate by way of different strategies. So then government can take the action. It's not government, because government has its own obligations, but these all are independent, supposed to be independent agencies, right? So the regulatory framework is generally, in any of the countries, they're independent for a reason, right? So because government also has interest in business, government also has interest in certain political and economic interests are there with the government. So the government cannot be party to this, so it has to maintain that independence. And if government is dragged into this, government becomes a party legally, which means actually it has to be it has to answer some questions in the court of the law. Then government cannot be a both regulator and the party to it. So that's why most of the governments are they don't own the regulator, like Central Bank, Reserve Bank of India, right? Reserve Bank of India is an independent authority. Government should not, by constitution, government should not interfere into it. Government has only very minimal role to play, giving a direction, but it doesn't have a role to intervene in their policy making. So that's the regulatory. So in Amazon, in social media or e-commerce, this is how they started, without regulation, right? So, and cross border also, like the social media like Facebook or Twitter can be accessed in India, but whatever you do on the platform, you cannot punish the person in a normal situation, right? In the earlier phases, right? Phases of the but today there are cyber laws, right? Where cyber crimes are recognized by the law, and then they are caught and they are punished. That is one, the for the people who are users. But the platform itself has some responsibility now. So, but still there is a huge loophole or gaps in regulating social media, because media cannot be regulated. There is again freedom of speech, which is enshrined in the constitution. It's a fundamental right. So you cannot intervene in a fundamental right. That is how we have framed our constitution, right? So if you frame our constitution in such a way, then it is very difficult to regulate social media. But you can regulate e-commerce companies in a way by regulating their payment modes, their consumer disputes, or competition council of India, CCI, has some powers to regulate. So that's how it is regulated. Did you get your answer, or still it's okay? How do we calculate the network effects of social media platforms, for example, like Twitter? So see, the thing is, it is not quantifiable in every sense, right? So the only quantification is how many users you have. Because of certain number of users, you are bringing more users. That itself is a success measurement. So how many users you are adding. So if you are saturating, like let's say after an year, Facebook stopped or Twitter stopped, getting new followers or new users, then these network effects have stopped now. The benefits of network effects have stopped, which means actually that is one measurement. And second measurement is, so users, adding users is the biggest, parameter to measure the success. So if you are unable to add, that means your network effects have stopped, one. But they will have still value because of the existing user base. That effects can be done in a different ways, right? So what is their business model? Based on that, it is calculated. One is advertisement revenue. Second is user fee itself. If the user, but Twitter, you are talking about Twitter. So Twitter doesn't have a user fee. Like you and me, if we go on Twitter platform, we don't pay anything. So obviously the revenue model is basically ad revenue, right? And if they bring more and more ads, they are successful. So ad revenue is a parameter for them. And maybe, tools, Twitter tools, right? Some of the Twitter tools can be sold to others. So other social media, if you are building your own, your own platform, like social media platform within the organization, right? So like, let's say IBM or Oracle or SAP or even Hindustan Lever, they want to have a Twitter-like platform in their organization, and who where the employees follow each other's work, right? And then they update on their work, and they use Twitter tool, and they ask Twitter to integrate their internal platform into that, but restrict the access to only within the organization, right? So if they can do that, then they will Twitter will get money from those companies. So that is one revenue model. So if the still, if they are able to generate the revenue, then still the network effects are still benefiting, right? So the benefiting the platform. So these are some of the examples. You have business models, right? So to measure whether the network effects are accruing the benefits or not. Is that answers your question? Yeah, cool. Any other questions you have?
I guess, sir, there are no more questions.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think whatever we have, I guess you have answered that.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And thank you very much. So we have covered, but we are not unable to cover much of the presentation. But we are halfway through in this session. So in the next session, we'll take up the next few slides. And apart from that, we will also take the stakeholders and ecosystems in the next session. So I will send some of the readings for this and the next session. And somebody asked actually about common pooled resources, right? So last time, so somebody asked common pooled resources and how you can develop platforms based on that Eleanor Ostrom's concept of common pooled resources. So I don't remember who asked this question. I'm sorry. But I will share that also in the next batch of materials, reading materials, so you guys can access that. So now there are already a good number of resources I have given, so you can find them in the on the platform on Digital Nalanda portal, right? You can access them and then read them. Do read them because they are extensive, I know. But you try to read what interests you. You don't have to read everything, but your interest, what interests you, what is that you are trying to gain out of this, because some of you have written very specifically what you want out of this these sessions. So some of them are answering those questions, those the reading materials. So if you have any doubts, any questions, we can take up this in the interactive sessions. So, but you didn't tell me which day actually you are comfortable with, Wednesday or Thursday, because I am more comfortable with Thursday, but Wednesday also I'm okay. So if you want to let me know, you can let me know by mail, or we can keep it on Thursday, and then we will mail you. Thursday is the interactive session. So that's another announcement. And reading material will be provided. Already there is some, so you can read and then come up with questions or any comment you have. So we can discuss this in the interactive session. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is your first session. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have. Yes, you can. You also can get. I think you have to register on the platform. So you have to register on Digital Nalanda portal. Then you can see all the material. So you can access all the material. So please do register and then get the material from there. Okay. Yeah. Okay, then thank you very much. And you have a good night. And we will see you again in the next session next week. Maybe or this week, no, next week, Thursday is the interactive session. If you are free and if you want to come to interactive session, you are welcome, and we will discuss the questions. And otherwise, we will meet on next Saturday, right? Okay. Thank you very much.